Hey guys, so I know what kinds of things you want to see. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hey everyone, right now I'm building this skyscraper from Swiss Dog Studios, and there's this crown on top, and I thought there was a lot of possibilities here. It certainly looks contemporary, but I thought I might be able to kind of take it up a notch. Here's what it looks like in the instruction manuals, and here's what the actual MDF looks like when you've got them just sort of pieced together. I don't have these glued together, I've just got them kind of shoved together for prototyping purposes. Now, what I was thinking is it would be really cool to have some sort of light that emanates from these. I mean, I like the pyramid step structure, there's no doubt about it, but to just make it pop a little bit on my layout, I figured, if I could have light shining out from under there or a spotlight or something like that, that would just be great. After running through a bunch of different options in my head, what I thought is if I could use some sort of RGB light or RGB LED and cycle through those so I could have different colors, fade in and out, maybe strobe, or just show a particular color on a day that I want to, say green on St. Patrick's Day, then that would be really neat. And what could I use to do that? One of the obvious things I could use is an Arduino or maybe a Raspberry Pi and attach an LED to it. And I certainly have the background and the skills for that. There's no doubt about it. But one thing I wanted to do is to keep this cheap and to see what I could do that I could share with other people so that they could do it too, even if they don't have any skills in coding or any skills creating any kind of hardware. I thought, man, what could be used for that? So I started looking around on the internet, and what I came up with I thought was a pretty good deal. By using a ready-made product, I'd also save myself tons of coding, and it wouldn't take a whole lot to code to make this work, but yeah, I got tired of coding, and that's why I quit that particular industry. So what did I come up with? After doing an eBay search for a little while, what I came up with was this really cool RGB light setup that's supposed to go into a car. It's supposed to become the parking lights, and what's really neat is it'll do everything I wanted it to do, and it'll do it really cheaply. It was only $4.99, and that included shipping. So what comes with it is this remote and two of these light bulbs here that you see in the background. If you look, it's a pretty neat remote. It has all these different colors and different options. And what you do is you turn on the light just by pointing the remote at it, hit on, and it'll start doing something. You can flip through the colors, just are red, green, and blue. And it'll combine all those in different wavelengths, including you can turn them all the way up to make white. So I thought, wow, this is going to do exactly what I want, and it's going to do it cheaply. Now, granted, it's not going to be quite as flexible if I were to code this myself, but whatever. For the sake of, it's going to cost me a lot more than $5 of my time to do this, and I'm not going to get this cool remote with it, so why not? And if you select a color, as you see here, and you press that color again, it'll cause that single color to flash until you click on a different color. Here's white, and it's pretty bright actually. Now there are these different options down the side, allow you to do things like have a flash mode, strobe mode where it goes in and out of colors really rapidly. There's also a fade mode where it kind of goes in and out more slowly. I think I'm going to actually use this one most often. And there's actually this smooth option, which isn't very smooth. So I'm not entirely sure what smooth does, but that's okay. I'll just have to play with it and find out what these things do. So I'm like, this is exactly what I need. Neat. Let's go ahead and put this in the crown of the building. For those of you wondering, yes, it's a car part, so you need to dump 12 volts into here. I've run it actually all the way up to 15 volts, and it's fine, so it doesn't seem like there's anything to worry about. I've actually run it as low as 8, so it seems to have a pretty broad range of tolerance on it if you don't have a constant voltage source, or you have one that's a little bit low and you don't want to bother to try to boost it or something like that. You can actually change the intensity of the light with these little buttons here up in the top, and I think these buttons also kind of slow down and speed up any kind of effect that's going on. The instruction sheet was very paltry, so I think it's better just to mess around with the remote and figure out what it does. But wow, neat, right? I mean, you can turn these things up and down, you can do whatever you want with it. Boy, this is just going to be perfect. You might be thinking to yourself, well, if you get 2 of these, and actually you can buy even more, you don't have to buy the remote, you can just buy these bulbs in sets and they're very cheap. You may think, well, what happens if I run a bunch of them together? Unfortunately, each of the bulbs has its own timing source, and they're not particularly high precision. And as you can see, they're actually going to come out of sync pretty quick here. In order to test this, I'm going to start them on this slow fade in and out. And again, the green is broken in one of the light bulbs. And we're going to see pretty quickly that the left bulb is going to outpace the right one. And it's actually starts showing up around 2 minutes. I mean, for those of you who are sensitive, you can actually already see now that the left one is outpacing the right. But certainly by the time we get to about 4 minutes, they're way off. There may be a way to synchronize these, but I haven't figured it out. They only take positive and negative inputs. There's just no clock input from what I can see. Now, for those of you who are really industrious, want to take these apart, you can actually go ahead and feed your own clock signal into them. That's no problem whatsoever. But my purpose here is to show you things that are easy, that pretty much anybody can do with just the most basic electronics knowledge. So if you can do some really basic soldering, in fact, you don't even have to do that. You can use clips if you want. And as long as you can get 12 volts pumped into these things, you've got yourself a ready-made, cool RGB LED set that you can control with that remote. All right, while we let these bulbs mesmerize us just a little bit more, I'm going to prep these stair-step octagons for some modification so that I can put one of these lights down the center of it. And here they are again. There's actually 15 of these, but I think probably 12 is going to be the widest one that I can work with in order to shove this bulb down in there. So I've kind of marked off 3 places where I'm going to drill down into these, and that's what I did because I'm going to bind these together using a rod that I'm going to shove through those holes. And the problem with MDF is it has a tendency to want to kind of peel up like compressed paper or something like that when you drill into it. So I went ahead and sanded them down. Actually ended up just using sandpaper in the end. In order to keep these octagons apart, I purchased these nifty 1/8 inch nylon spacers that are going to go down on the rods, and then I'm going to feed the next octagon on top of that. So wow, this is pretty good. This is all coming together here. Here are these threaded rods that I bought for this purpose, and I'm going to just use airplane nuts to tie off the 2 ends, and that way if I move the building around, I just don't have to worry about these things working themselves loose. I know that once I tighten these down, they're going to stay. But also, I'm going to use airplane nuts because if I have to loosen one for some reason to kind of even out the pyramid, then I know it's going to stay in place and it's not going to work itself looser or tighter or something like that. So yeah, we'll just kind of go through this process here and we'll see the end result. As an aside, I'm going to stop narrating for a second so you can see one of the most absolutely satisfying things that happened to me while working on this project. I just had to share that with you. That was just, it was just incredible and one of those nice little moments that you can have while doing something creative. Alrighty, let's just take our little hole saw and drill down into these so we have a cavity to put that light bulb. This worked pretty well. The hole saw, of course, kept clogging with these little wafers of MDF, but I just had to stop once in a while to clear them out. But they all held together nicely since those bolts were through, and they kind of kept everything even for me. In order to add some contrast to this compared to the brown MDF color that the building is going to be, I've used this leftover aged copper that I had from another project. All right, we'll just give this a little splash here, and a little splash there until it's nicely colored. Oh, it looks great out in the sunlight. It's too bad that my basement doesn't have this much light. Alrighty, here's the final result. Actually, in real life, the transitions look a lot smoother than this. It looks steppy here, and I think that has something to do with the camera. If you wait a little bit, you'll see that, in fact, it looks smoother. But to my eyes, it looks really smooth. I think it's just the way that the frame rate interacts with the LED's refresh rate. So here we have it. I think this came out great. It looks exactly kind of like I thought it would in my head. Add a little airplane light there on top, and boy, just there's a lot you can do with it. Shift it green, red, whatever you want. I think that's great. And I think, like I said, I'll probably usually just leave it on one of the effects like the fade or the strobe. I just think that looks really nice. I think that'll be eye-catching when I'm doing any kind of videos of my layout, but it won't be too overwhelming. It won't distract from the rest of the layout, so I like this smooth effect. Let's turn off the lights, and as you can see, it projects really nicely. And so if you do a lot of night photography on your layout, I'm eventually going to optimize my layout so that it looks great at night. And here you can see, I think, after I turn off the lights and kind of change the exposure a little bit, the fade in and out looks a lot smoother. And this is what it looks like to me in real life. So you don't have to worry about that stair-stepping that you saw before. I think it looks wonderful. I think it mimics what a real skyscraper would look like out in the world if I were to design it anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm going to try to present to you more cheap and easy ways to do things with electronics. You don't have to go into a lot of programming. There are a lot of products out there available to you that you can use just by pushing voltage into them, more or less. Now, of course, it's not as customizable as something I would program would be, but this is more than what I need for my skyscraper here. And I'll eventually finish the skyscraper, doing a lot of interior work to it, but I didn't want to hold this up since I thought this was a great idea that a lot of people could benefit from. So if you like this and you like what I'm doing, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I really want to hear your thoughts. Maybe you figured out some other pieces of electronics that'll work great on a layout that's really cheap and won't take a lot of work. So thanks for watching, and stay safe and take care.